welcome to another episode on the Beauty Expanded podcast. Today is a really special episode because I have been obsessed with this licensed esthetician on Instagram for the longest time. And I'm not even an esthetician, but I stumbled across Mariah Sanchez and started following her because her content was so valuable. I love everything that she shares, and I've been inspired by taking some of the topics that she promoted and educated people in the aesthetics world and have used it as inspiration even for some of my social media posts when it comes to paramedical tattooing. I also thought it was really cool that she was opening up her own aesthetics academy school here in Arizona. Oddly enough, or lucky for me, her academy is actually opening up in the same outdoor mall area that Studio Conceal is located. And so I took my chance, reached out to her and asked her if she would actually have some time to sit down with me and be a guest on this podcast, which she was so willing to do. She's been a licensed esthetician for the past 12 years, originally opened up her solo practice in Washington State, grew her business, and got to a point where she says was at the peak of her success. Then her husband needed to open up his business and move and relocate their entire family to Arizona. And what I find so interesting about Mariah's story is that she had to start from scratch all over again. Oftentimes, we usually just have to start from scratch once. And what's so interesting about Mariah, which she digs into this episode, is having to really start all over again. In some ways, it was easier because she at least wasn't starting with zero experience, zero portfolio, a zero following. But in many other ways, she really did have to start from square one in not knowing single soul in Arizona and really build up her credibility in an entirely new state. The one thing that I also really love about Mariah is that there's no gatekeeping in this episode. The person that you see online is exactly the person that I met in person. And I just love that. She shares so much. She gets real, she's vulnerable, and she's completely transparent in what it's like having to build your business from scratch 2 times, but then also go through the legalities when it comes to opening up your state licensed academy. I kid you not, guys. Mark my words. These things you just begin to know. And in my heart of hearts, as Mariah is sitting down and sharing with me, I just know with complete conviction that she will completely change the way that estheticians are licensed, not only in the state of Arizona, but statewide. Like this girl, watch her. She is going to be a huge influence and pioneer when it comes to the licensing education protocols for aesthetics. And if you get the chance to actually be licensed and trained by her, just know that this is the type of person you want in your corner. She is so passionate, so wise, and extremely approachable. And you just know that she wants you to win too. So give her a follow. All of her details will be in the show notes about her academy, where you can find her. And I promise you, this is someone that you actually want to engage and follow. She absolutely pours into her 72,000 followers that she has with a ton of intention, passion, and honesty. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, I'm Jade Hernandez, a camouflage tattoo artist and educator. I help beauty bosses effectively market their business and become the authority in their field, close more leads, and make more money. In the past 6 years, I've launched 2 successful beauty businesses to multiple 6 figures with over 100 5-star raving reviews and several media press spotlights. While most marketers will tell you to hustle and work harder for success, I'll show you how to create more value from the inside out so that you work less, make more, and truly expand and transform your business and life. This is the Beauty Expanded podcast.
People were like coming to me and coming back, and I'm like, if they're coming to me in my living room, how much better would this be if I went solo? So I opened up a space in a tiny rundown, like I'm talking completely rundown. Looking back now, I'm like, why did people trust me in that space? It was just really old and I had to do a lot of work to it, but was able to grow at the time, making around $10,000 a month in a little rundown building as a solo brand new esthetician. And I
Also working at Sephora and Ulta too?
This was full time. So after I started taking people from my in-home business, I was working at Ulta at that time that I was doing at the same time, started to notice that I was picking up and really growing. So I'm like, okay, let's just invest into like the little building, fix it up a little bit. And then that's when I went all in. And then I grew so quick that I had to move out of to another city because I needed a bigger space and I wanted to be in a nicer area. I wanted to attract a certain type of clientele. And where I was at was just not cutting it. It wasn't ideal for my ideal client. And so I moved to another city into a nicer building and was able to grow exponentially at that time. And then my husband and his dad, they own their own company, needed to move the business down to Arizona. So after all of that work building my business, I had to move all the way here to Arizona and start my business from scratch. And it was like the peak of my business. I was doing the absolute best and then had to break everything down and start from scratch. And that was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my career. And even in my personal life, that was such a hard thing to go from highest of high to completely zero. But doing that obviously is what led me to where I am now and gave me such a boost of confidence to start my business over, grow all the way back up again in a state where I knew absolutely no one, was able to build my own. It's been 2.5 years to really build up that clientele again. And that has led me into where I am now, which is opening up an aesthetic school. So within this time, I was also a training esthetician. A lot of girls were asking me, how did you build your client? How did you build your business back up from zero? And so I was teaching them how I was doing it, how I was getting clients in, keeping them, retaining them, all of that. And then within that training period, I had been thinking about opening up a school, I would say since 2020 in Washington State, actually, is when I originally wanted to open up a school. But the rules and regulations are very strict in different states. So when I moved here to Arizona, I was like, this state makes it a lot easier to open up a school. So that's what pushed me to go and get my educator's license, because I wanted to be able to teach and not just open up a school, but go through the experience of teaching as a licensed educator and then open up my own school. And that's where I'm at now and getting ready to open next month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next month. So May of 2024.
Yep.
Okay. And then how long has this licensing process?
I would say 2 years
Okay.
of planning to open the school. So before even moving here to Arizona, I was going to open up a school, but to actually put the pen on the paper, okay, we're doing this. It's been about 2 years of process. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. I love your story because not only were you a new esthetician that started doing this part-time into making it a full-time career. So back then you still had to start from square one, which is build up your business, your clientele. Then you experienced that all over again when you moved to Arizona. But this time you actually have experience working with clients and building a business, but now you have to start from ground zero at the peak of your success. So in that moment, if you could share, I'm really curious, building your clientele, starting from scratch again, what were some things that you did differently now that you're an experienced esthetician versus being a brand new esthetician? What were those lessons? And did you find that starting from zero again, was it more effective this time around? Some of those changes that you've made?
That is such an incredible question. Yeah, I did a lot of things different. And I think kind of like what you said, I learned so much the first time around and I was making a lot of mistakes. Like in the very early beginning, it was working, but I feel I could have grown quicker.
What were some of those mistakes?
Number one, being responsive. I've actually never even talked about any of this, so I love that you asked this. But being responsive was something that I really struggled with. I was a mom. I had 2 boys that are 13 months apart. And at the time, they were very little. They were like 2, 3, 4, just like so little. And I had a lot going on in my personal life being a mom. And so responding to people and getting back to people who wanted to pick up product and whatever, I was not very good at that. Also, canceling on people last minute was something that I struggled with because just being a mom, and I'm just being totally transparent, that was something that I really struggled with. And I think if I would have, which when I moved here to Arizona, I really snipped all that and started fresh and was like, I'm going to respond to everyone on time. I'm going to hold myself accountable to these appointments and everything. That's what really changed the game for me. But I would say being responsive was my biggest struggle. Also, I didn't track my finances and the taxes and all the business side. I was not doing that very well in Washington because I just didn't know. I didn't know what I knew now. Moving forward, I was able to really grow quickly by honing in on the business skills. So I was reading books. I was learning as much as I could on the business, the money numbers of my business to really track and grow. Where before I'm like, yeah, I'm making 10,000 a month and it's great, but I don't know where it's going and I don't know what I'm spending my money on and just blowing my money on whatever. Where going forward, I'm investing. I'm doing things so much different. And that really made a huge difference and has allowed me to be where I'm at now.
A lot of entrepreneurs, we learn so many lessons as we're building our business. And one of them that is a taboo subject is finances and money. And it's probably because a lot of us didn't have the greatest upbringing or transparency when it came to how we think of money and how we earn it and attract it. So when you started looking at finances and started reading books, because all I think about when I think about finances is just simply tells you a story. Numbers just tell you a story. And so when you begin to learn that language, then you actually feel more empowered instead of feeling ashamed, or maybe I'm doing something wrong, or I'm spending too much, or where is my money? Like just trying to avoid it. As long as the money's coming, I'm going to avoid all the details of where it's coming from. So when you begin to understand the numbers from someone who's listening to this, who maybe doesn't really look at their finances, when you started learning about the numbers and the finances of your business, what was it telling you?
Number one would be I wasn't aware of where my money was going. I had to sit down and the little things that I was subscribed to for my business, the extra money that I was spending on supplies and extra products and things that I were so unnecessary just because I wasn't tracking it. So I would say like sit down and I just literally spreadsheet. What am I spending every single month? Is it a necessity for the business or is it not? And the money that I am making, how do I make that money make me more money? And that's something that I have learned. It's been the best piece of advice. And I know it seems so like common sense, but I want my money to make me money and not just be spent on things that are going to sit there and sit in my closet. So that's something that's been super life-changing for me.
Yeah. And I can imagine it's empowering too, because I think especially when you're starting out as an esthetician going solo, you want to kind of help everyone. But if you don't really understand the finances and actually how much things are expending on your account, like how much things are actually costing you, I think that's where it can get a little risky, because when you're setting your prices out for your services, at the end of the day, how much money are you actually bringing home with every client? Because then that's going to tell you whether or not you're profitable, whether or not that hour, hour and a half, 2 hour session is really going to sustain your business for long term.
It's so true. And we don't think about that. Even with giving away free services, I am naturally a giver and a nurturer. And so I just want to, I don't want to charge anyone. And then I'm like, wait, but I'm not making money. And so then I kind of switch, and that's when everything started to switch. And I'm like, okay, no, I got to put my foot down. So that was something that I learned too. Going forward, I can't just give away free services all the time to everyone and not charge, but really take my business seriously so that my clients would take me seriously and they would value my services and my products. And I feel like if I wasn't valuing it, how could I expect them to?
Yeah. When you moved to Arizona, starting brand new again, what did you do differently when it came to really promoting yourself as a new esthetician? People are like, oh, well, I got to build my clientele. And so I have to prove myself. And did you give out services for free in the beginning? What was your strategy when building up your clientele and your credibility?
The first time around, I did not have anything to stand on. I knew how important reviews and before and after pictures were going to be. Also, education. Back when videos like Instagram was not a thing, back when I was on Facebook, I was on my stories and on my feed trying to educate anyone that would watch. And then when Instagram started becoming more and more popular, I was already posting every single day, educating potential clients on why they need to exfoliate, why they need to wear SPF, everything you can think of. I was on there every single day. And I remember my family and friends being like, why are you always on? Like, no one's watching, like no one cares. And at the time, I felt embarrassed to be on there so much, but I knew deep down I have to show up. And if I can reach people through a screen, like the reach is so much more than in person sitting outside of my business with a sign. I knew early on that social media and being online was going to be huge. So I just didn't give up. And I just always was posting. And then as I would get people in, I would do services definitely for free in the beginning because I wanted before and after pictures. Those girls that came in, if it was family and friends, getting a free service, I would have them tag me in their stories so that their friends were seeing. And that was like huge for my business. And that's how things really started to grow. And then as people come in, I was treating acne or I was treating certain things and would have really good before and afters. And that is what really helped me with that credibility. So when I moved to Arizona and I started from scratch, now I had the experience, but I didn't know anyone. So I didn't have anyone to trust me. So I had to kind of lean on social media, but get myself out there and meet people in person, which I didn't have to do as much in Washington because I already knew so many people. So when I moved here, I had to literally go out and I would talk to the teachers at my kid's school, on the sports team. I'd be like, hey, I'm an esthetician. I'm opening up my business. And, it took months. Like literally, I say this all the time. I did not have a single client when I moved to Arizona. I opened up my business. I was here in the club in the Santan Village Mall. I did not have one client come and see me for the first 2 months of being open. And it was so hard because at the time I had 20,000, 30,000 followers on Instagram. So I was like, oh, it's going to be easy for me to just open up a business and everyone knows who I am. So it'll be great, right? No, it was not even close. Just because someone has a large following on Instagram does not mean that their business is thriving, does not mean that they're a millionaire. People just assume that. And I am proof that that is not the case at all. I had to work so hard to get out there and meet people and connect and get people in for facials to really build again.
Wow. I love that consistency. I love that persistence.
Mhm.
What helped you during those 2 months to still hit the ground running and mentally still be all in? Because I can imagine that's a ton of rejection and just putting your name out there, literally walking away from a business where you were at your peak and super successful. So I always really love to hear more of the mindset stuff,
Yeah.
like the details that nobody really knows about unless they were right there in your shoes. So what really helped you those 2 months to keep going?
Oh my gosh. It makes me emotional to think about because it was the darkest time of my life. I know that sounds so dramatic, but it was so hard. And I think it's a humbling experience because you have these expectations. And then, like you said, it was rejection. I am in a brand new state. I thought everything was going to go great. There were so many nights I bawled my eyes out, probably more times than I can even remember, just every single day, all day, night crying, like, what am I doing? So I just left all of this behind. And I almost felt resentful that we had moved. And I don't want to put myself and my business before my family and my husband and his job and the kids. But it was really hard. I would say the thing that got me through, number one, is my husband. And I talk about him a lot on my Instagram and on my stuff. He is my number one supporter through everything. He is also self-employed and has a successful business himself. He is an entrepreneur at its core. And watching him go through so much in his own company and starting from the ground and getting to where he's at now really helped me because I saw him go through things and he was just that person in my corner, like, hey, you're going to get through this. What I love about him is it's never just a handout. For him, he always pushed me and was like, you're going to get through this. You can do it. I believe in you. And he saw something in me that I didn't even see. And we need that. Having someone, especially be your husband, I couldn't have asked for a better person in my life to really push me and help me through those times. So number one, him. And also just shifting my mindset around, I wouldn't even say my confidence, but not to think less of yourself because you're going through something. I'm not less of a person because I can't get clients in my door. I can get through this, and just building my confidence, shifting my mind changed my entire life. And I'm telling you, I would never be opening up a school and doing the types of things that I'm doing now if I was in the same mindset that I had when I moved here. No way.
What helped you shift that mindset?
I would say reading really good books. Have you ever heard of the book Oversubscribed? Okay, it is by Daniel Priestley. If you were watching, you have to get this book. It was life-changing information. Also, I believe in God. I believe in faith. And I think that's a huge part of where and why I'm at too. Just trusting in God and trusting that it's out of my hands and it's out of my control. There is nothing I can do at this point, and I'm just praying to God that you're going to get me through this. And sometimes when we let go, that's when God comes in and takes over. And so that's something that obviously has really just been my firm rock and foundation through all of this. And I trust that God's going to get me through anything that I'm going through.
2 months later,
Yeah.
you finally get your first client. Now, was this a paying client? Were you so nervous? You've just had 2 months and then finally you have someone in your treatment chair. Tell me about that.
Oh my gosh. So funny story. My very first client, she books an appointment. So when I first moved here, I was subleasing with another girl so that I could split the cost because being at the collab was a little bit more out of my budget, but I knew that my ideal client was going to be here. And so I'm like, I'm going to pay it. I don't care what it costs. So I subleased with this girl, and my very first client, after 2 months, I had one client book a facial, and I don't even know where she came from. I don't know how she found me, but she books a facial. The day of her appointment, I go in and the girl that I was subleasing with locked key into our suite. So I literally got there and couldn't take my very first client. I bawled my eyes out. I'm like, I've just waited and worked my ass off to get these clients. And literally my very first client, I can't even take her. So and the girl was like all the way in Phoenix, so she couldn't even get there in time. And our door wouldn't open. So I had to cancel my very first appointment. And she actually ended up rebooking a few weeks later. But aside from that, my very first client was a brow wax. I kid you not, it was a $20 service. She was just walking through the mall and she's like, hey, like, can I get a brow wax? And I'm like, absolutely. And I remember the feeling. I just happened to be there. I was recording content because I didn't have clients. I'm going to at least make content.
Yeah.
And she came in for a brow wax, and I remember the feeling, and I was like, I'm going to give her the best brow wax of her life. My lease is $1,500. She's going to pay me $20. It's not going to do anything for me, but I'm going to make sure that I give her the best brow wax that she's ever had. And I'm going to tell her about all my other services. And I just remember that feeling. And she did. I gave her brow wax, and I remember showing her the mirror, and she was almost in tears because she loved her eyebrows so much. And it was so minor. But it reminded me that the foundation of the business is the people and giving them the best experience, even if it's a $5 service or free service, is really what will build that foundation of your business. And I remember her sending me people. So I gave her brow wax. She loved it. She rebooked her next appointment. She booked a facial. And then I was getting people contacting me from that one service. And that's really how everything began to grow.
I've noticed success loves momentum. So when you begin to get that momentum running, you just got to go with it.
Yeah.
And that one person, like you said, ended up building that momentum to start referring other people because of the energy that you put forth into it too, by giving her the best brow wax.
Yeah.
For $20, instead of being like, oh my God, is this really my first client after a few months of not getting any income coming in?
Yeah.
I'm hearing that mindset is huge for helping you sustain your business during that really, really dark period. Okay, so then bring me back to you're building momentum now in Arizona, you're getting clients. When did you, at that point, start looking into building out this academy? Or did you end up moving, again, getting your own space, and then thinking like, there's this need here and I really want to start doing this?
Back in 2012, I remember graduating and being like, that's it. That's what I learned. That's what I just spent a year of my life. And I literally don't even feel comfortable analyzing someone's skin. So I remember right out of school, and I actually wrote this down, and I'd love to find it, but I actually wrote, when I make it, when I figure out all of these things that I didn't learn, and I learn how to do this, when I figure this out, I'm opening up a school. And I said that years ago. But I would say the transition in Washington, wanting to open up a school, once I had already planned that towards the end because I was doing it and I was building a business and I loved teaching, like educating. And it was like, wow, I really, really love this. I knew I wouldn't open a school in Washington. So when we moved to Arizona, it was such a downer. I'm in such despair. How could I open up a school when I'm feeling like this? And so I remember once I started to pick up and I started to get myself out of this rut and really build my confidence back up, girls were reaching out to me. Mariah, can you train me? Can you teach me? Can you mentor me? It helped me. My followers, my girls who were on my Instagram were so inspiring. And I felt like I was letting them down at the same time. Like I had moved out of state and I'm like, watch me build my business back up. Watch me do it. And then it was crickets. And I'm like, I have all these girls watching me that trust me, that want me to show them that it's possible. And I'm not doing it. How am I going to open up a school? There's no way. But again, getting out of that rut was when I was like, okay, I can do it. I know that I was born to do this. I know that I have this like gift of teaching. I need to pursue this. And that was when I enrolled in school to become an educator. And then it was full force from there. I knew, okay, my business is booming. And the girls that I was training and teaching, they're getting success from what I'm teaching. I'm going to really pursue this school. And that's when everything took off.
It's amazing because I feel like during those 2 months of starting from ground zero again, especially when you hit the peak of your success at one point, that was one peak. And then a bird's eye view is I already know that you're going to be super successful with your academy and the launch of this. Even when you think, Mariah, that was one peak of success, you're going to notice that there's another peak that's even greater than that. I also think those 2 months really make up for a really great story because there's a lot of people that are probably spending a few months right now in the dip of their business, wondering if it really is going to take off. In those moments, and I think it's even great advice for me, is in those moments as an entrepreneur, when there's those dips, is realizing like, okay, like everything is happening for me. And this one day I don't know how, but one day this is really going to make for a really great story that's going to help someone
Oh
else.
my gosh, yeah.
When you were looking into the academy and the licensing, so one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess one of the concerns I would have is creative freedom. Because sometimes when things are more regulated statewide, do you have a lot of creative freedom when it comes to like how you want to program out your academy, knowing that there's all these gaps? I think that's like one thing about aesthetic school is it really just gives you the most basic foundation and introduces you to all these many different services. And then I feel like once you actually get licensed, then you really figure out of all the things that I learned, where do I really want to invest my career and time and resources into? And I wish they were a little bit more forthcoming in regards to like what that basic foundation is, because it is the most basic foundation
Yeah.
from what I've heard. So when you are going through this and becoming a state licensed educator, is that a concern at all?
That is such a great question, by the way. Going through the school to get my educator license, it's so clear to me that the schools and the state, everything is very basic. And a lot of teachers, and I'm not speaking for all, but a lot of the teachers are just showing up and they're doing what they're told. They're doing what they're paid to do
By the state.
by the state.
So that's not even
By
someone in the actual beauty industry who is servicing clients. It's like by state.
Exactly. Yes. And it's like, this is what we're teaching. Show up, teach what's in the textbook, and that's it. And a lot of teachers are okay with it because it's a job. Not a lot of teachers are forward thinking. And I think, as weird as it sounds, a lot of the teachers that I was around were a little bit older than I was. And I was kind of like young. And they're like, what are you doing here? Why are you teaching? You're too young to be, I'm not young, but too young to be like teacher. As crazy as it sounds, like I just know that this is my like purpose. It's my calling. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it didn't make sense to anyone. And also with that, I would question, I'm such a questioner, but I would question, do you feel like that's the right thing to be teaching? Do you think that this is updated information? What do you think? And really questioning the school and what they're teaching. And do you really think that this is how students should be learning? Do you think this is enough for them to leave? And it would be speechless answers, like not have an answer. Someone needs to advocate for these students. It's not even just about the fact that they're paying a certain amount for school, but we need to hold ourselves, and state board needs to hold to a certain standard that these girls are learning what needs to be taught, updated information, updated equipment, updated everything. Why are we using Q-tips when we should, I don't know, I'm just like thinking of little things that they were doing outdated things and equipment that they were using. And I'm like, this is so wrong on so many levels. And I would really question that. And I think because of that and getting the pushback of, well, this is just how it's done. This is how it's going to be. And state board isn't going to let anything change. And I'm like, okay, be the change. Be the one who's going to set a new standard for aesthetic. I'm just so passionate about it. And I really was willing to question the system. And although there are certain things, and now going through the process of opening my school, I see I have to teach certain things that I'm not fond of. How can I twist it? How can I make it very interactive for the students and make it worth their while they're in school? So I think I can still be creative in what I'm teaching, and I will not stop and just lay down to what has to be done or what is the requirements are right now. I will push for advancement so that these girls are getting the best education and the most updated technology at my school. And that is really my vision and hope for the future of aesthetics.
Absolutely. In the world of tattooing, we're the opposite of you, where everything is completely unregulated, which I believe will probably change in the future and will become more regulated. And even though there's pros and cons to that, pros, of course, like, great, maybe we can up-level the standard of care and safety for all these aspiring artists that are getting trained and working on people permanently altering their bodies. And at the same time, I think my concern is, will state board be able to be up to terms with the standard and level of care at the highest level as well? And would we be limited to what we can actually do and use? That's maybe not the most effective way. And so I love that you obviously have a passion for that and also the courage to question everything and not let it deter you or limit your potential, which would then obviously limit the potential of your students. So one of the things about tattooing is it's one skill set to learn how to tattoo, and it's an entirely different skill set to learn how to build a business in tattooing. And people often come into the industry thinking that it's the same. Once I learn how to tattoo or get certified in camouflage tattooing, for example, it will immediately mean that I will have a sustaining and profitable business in tattooing. Yeah. And you know that aesthetics is the same way. Is you can be trained and licensed as an esthetician, but it's an entirely different skill set to actually be able to grow a business in aesthetics. Can you share a little bit more about your perspective on that?
Yeah, it is so true. People think I get my license and then people are going to be flocking to me. And number one, takes so much time. It takes time and investment of your time into people. And I will say this until I am blue in the face. You have to invest in the people before the people are going to invest back in you. It takes time to really grow and build a business. It's not just like, oh, get my license, open my door, and people are going to come in. You have to invest in them. You have to pour into them. You have to pour into education. And I talk about this book a lot, but oversubscribed. It is such a great book. One thing that Daniel Priestley talks about is you have to spend a certain amount of hour. So it's like 7, 4, 11. You have to see someone 7 times on average before they buy with you, 11 interactions like online and other places. And then 4 hours, you have to spend a lot of time with someone before they spend money with you. And so being online, showing up at events, meeting people, different places, it's so important. It's those little things that people don't think about, that they're just like, oh, just open the doors and people are going to find me. No, you have to get out. You have to build and really invest back into your business with time, with finances, with everything to really see that return. And if you're trying to just build a quick fix and whatever, like that might work for a little bit, but it's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to be continual. It's just going to be a short-lived hype. And that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will Aesthetics Academy be helping people with that process? How does that look like from the moment that they get licensed?
So my program will have so much. I want to teach, and again, forward thinking, not that luxury spa facials are out, but I really think the future of aesthetics is number one, facial bars. So it's a result driven treatments, a little bit quicker, not long facial spa. There's nothing wrong with it. But I do believe that the future of aesthetics is a little bit more result driven and quicker. So I think teaching them how to run their own business. I actually have an entire company coming in. They're going to be part of my curriculum. So they're going to be a 40-hour lesson plan where they come in and they're going to teach my students everything they need to know about opening, starting a business, the taxes, the legality, how to run QuickBooks, like everything. And that's something that a lot of schools are not, if any, are doing. And so bringing that into them to teach them the basics, the foundations. And even if they don't want to learn those things, I'll have options for as far as how to build your resume, how to build your social media presence, how to build your personal brand. All of these things are crucial. And piecing together all of these things to make them successful so that by the time not only they're learning the basics of facials and how to do these treatments and modalities and analyze the skin and everything that aesthetics has to offer times 100, because it's going to be freaking awesome. But also the business side, the branding side. So by the time that they graduate, they're a new person. And that's really what my mission is. It's more than just an aesthetic school. You're going to come through here. I'm going to teach you mindset. I'm going to teach you how to build your confidence through retail, selling. Everything is going to be included in this program. So they're going to leave feeling so good about moving forward.
You make me want to be an esthetician.
Oh, I love it. Hey, there's openings if you want to come anytime, girl.
I love it. One of the other things that I wanted to address is in the beginning, you said that you always knew that you wanted to attract a certain type of client. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. It's funny enough, and I don't really talk about this too much, and not to talk down on anyone ever at all, because everyone has their own certain type of clients that they attract. I wanted to set my bar high. I wanted to attract high-paying clients. I wanted to charge more for my services. I didn't want to be stuck in this $50 facial realm. And I knew that in order to attract my ideal client, I needed to know who that was. I needed to be very specific with the type of client that I wanted to attract. And I knew I wanted to attract businesswomen, real estate agents, nurses, like girls who were being higher paid, who took their skin seriously, who wanted to come in. And obviously these types of women did not have time. And so they needed quick treatments. They wanted quick and effective treatments. And that was my niche. I don't want to do a fluff facial. I don't want to do a facial massage. I want to give you a chemical peel and I want to give you results. And I want to get you out because I want you to go and do what you do best. And I'll take care of your skin while you do that. And so I, number one, needed to move to a nicer location. So being in a better location, investing in better equipment, better products like Glymed, where I was using like the Dermalogica. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I knew I needed to level up to attract my ideal client. And then really getting in the head of that girl. Like, okay, she's a real estate agent. She's a nurse. Owns her own business. These type of women are different. They're built different. And I was so obsessed with what types of women are these. And I'm that woman now. That's what I want to be. And that's the type of woman that I'm trying to attract to my business. And so I just started to change those little things. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. Those are my ideal client. Obviously, now I'm opening up the school, so I'm not taking clients. But by changing who I was talking to, how I was talking, how I was dressing, those little details changed everything.
I love how you broke that down. I literally got chills.
Oh, I love
I
it.
love how you broke that down because I believe like always attracts like. And so if you are wanting to attract that higher caliber, and higher caliber doesn't mean that they just have necessarily more money, because I'm the same way in which I structure our business and our services. Price is just marketing.
Yep.
However you price your services is simply marketing your level of fitness, the brand, the value in a certain way. So that way you can begin to like attract like, right? But I think where a lot of people get stuck is they want to attract a higher caliber of client and they want to be able to charge more, and yet they're not portraying the same image, professionalism,
Yep.
standard of care, detail, quality, value in the way in which that ideal client is needing it to be portrayed. And I think a lot of people forget about that. And so it kind of goes back to where you talked about earlier about some of those key things that you did differently this second time around in building your business, which is being a lot more responsive, being more accountable, being consistent and committed to your schedule. And it's those small details. And because they're small, I think is the reason why a lot of people dismiss them
Yeah.
when it's everything. And even for our clients, I literally did this episode called The Elevated Experience because I know there's a reason why we attract the caliber of clients that we do and why we can charge the prices that we do. And it's all those seemingly insignificant details that most people sleep on.
Yeah.
It's showing up to work 30, 40 minutes beforehand to prepare for the studio. Because to me, even if my client's appointment is at 10 a.m., if I show up at 10 a.m. and they show up at 10 a.m., I'm already late.
Yep.
And I have some clients, because they're busy professional women, they got things to do, they may arrive 15, 20 minutes early. So I always want to be sure that I'm here way before they arrive. Because even if they're early, they're 20 minutes early, and I show up 15 minutes earlier, I will always look like I'm late.
Yep.
It's the image.
Yep.
And everything is, how are you being portrayed? Impressions are so important, especially the first impression.
Yeah.
Anything you would add to that?
No, that was perfectly said. I am huge on first impression. You never have a second chance to make a first impression. Like that first impression, I say this to my husband all the time. We're going somewhere and, well, where are you dressed up? We're going to Costco. But I'm like, I might meet a potential student. I might meet someone who followed me on Instagram, and I never have a second chance to make a first impression. And so everywhere I go, like, yeah, it might be too much for some people, but I hold myself to a certain standard. I want to carry myself a certain way, and I'm very protective of that. And I think it is a huge piece to being successful, is holding yourself to those standards.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you think of when I price out things, knowing all it is just marketing a certain type of client that I want to attract.
Yeah.
So when I price things, I always like to be at like the 20, if not 10% of the marketplace, because I feel like there's less competition, which is mind-boggling for people because it seems so counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Is be the lowest provider so you'll attract more people because you're cheapening your services, or it's at a lower price than maybe the average, which I never want to be the low price leader. There's a reason why there's a Walmart, but there's also a reason why I'll take the extra 10-minute drive to go to Target to avoid Walmart, even if it's going to cost me a little bit more at Target. But then I also think that if you price your services on average, so like one of the worst things I think people can do as an entrepreneur, and again, these are like those unconventional ways of thinking. And I'm exactly like you. I think a lot of my success has been because I always question everything.
Yeah.
And when I see everyone doing one thing a certain way, I will do the opposite.
Girl,
and
yes.
So one of the things that I notice with a lot of trainers and educators in my industry is they'll tell people, look at the industry, look at your city, your zip code, look at what other people are charging for paramedical tattooing. And then they take whatever the market industry is and they use that to determine how they're going to price out your services. And I think that's actually the worst way you can price things out because you get lost. What's going to make you different than anyone else who's also charging a $50 facial? And so for me, I like being at the top. There's way less competition because not a lot of people are doing it.
Yeah.
And I also attract the best client.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. And in fact, it's hard to even say in the beginning, like early on, when I clearly was learning myself, that's what I was doing. I was like, well, what's everyone doing? And then let me go a little bit under because then I'll just attract everyone. And it worked kind of, sort of, but when I shifted my thinking and I shifted to value, it is about the value that you are giving. You're giving a valuable service. I'm using high quality products. My service is top notch. All of these things, think about the value that you bring. Price is irrelevant when the value is through the roof. And going forward now, even with my school, I'm definitely the highest priced school in Arizona, probably anywhere. And I am 100% okay with it. I'm fine. It is not for everyone and not every girl can be able to afford it. But I guarantee that the girls who do go through it, the value that they're going to have in their life from going through my program, there's no price tag that you can put on it. And that's the most important piece. And I believe that with all of my being. And as long as I know internally that we're giving the best service and I'm bringing a lot to the table, that what sets the price. It is not just trying to beat everyone or be the lowest to get a lot of people. It's being very intentional with the few people who I do have coming to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's the other thing. It's like instead of looking at a program and thinking, what do I have to lose? It's like looking at a program instead and being like, what do I have to gain?
Yeah.
And so that comes with the value is you're going to get them results. And same thing with your facials and the aesthetic portion of it before you got into the academy part is you were like, I'm going to get you results. I'm going to get you effective results. And that plays into what does value actually mean? And I think a lot of people miss on that because they're thinking value monetarily.
Yeah.
And it's so like 3D to me. It's so superficial to just assume value is money, right?
Right.
And I think when you just think of value is only money is where you find yourself discounting.
Yep.
And because you're just valuing your service based on pennies to a dollar, which means that all it takes is one competitor to maybe go a few dollars below you and steal business from you. Whereas when you actually begin to redefine what value is results, life-changing, problem-solving, solve bigger problems, and people will pay for it.
Yeah.
And so that's really, it's like beginning to shift what that value.
Yeah. It's exactly true. And I think a lot of girls don't think that way. And it's not their fault. We're conditioned to not think that way. And I think a lot of estheticians, we're in it for the skincare and the creative asset, the creative part of it. And a lot of estheticians are creative. They're not thinking the business aspect. They're not thinking the value. They're just thinking, I'm really good at facials, just do the facials. But there's so many other aspects that play into it. So I think by questioning and by opening up this door to be like, hey, what value are you giving? It's not just the facial, but like what else are you giving? What is the total value of the overall service? I don't think estheticians think about that enough. And I think if they did, they could really put more value on their service.
Yeah. You bring up a good point too. I always invest in business coaching. I love to read books as well. And that's really helped me with my mindset. It's probably more of those one-on-one interactions with my business coaches. And the other day, they were talking about you are always the byproduct of your context. And someone on a coaching call was having a hard time doing the selling part of their business, which, business is sales.
Mm-hmm.
But they loved coaching. Like they loved being in the moment of coaching. And so it was a really great call because it helped shift my perspective too. It's like, obviously you need sales and marketing to grow your business, but if you can change the context, everything else then changes. And so it's like being able to remember the moments maybe when you're in your treatment room and you're really helping people and you're getting them to feel so much more comfortable in their own skin. And you're giving them that boost in confidence because you're addressing acne or whatever the case may be. And so that brings so much fulfillment to you as a business owner. And so then when you can kind of think about the things like the boring and unsexy things about business, because again, if you want your business to entertain you, you're going to find out quickly that business is business. And if you're looking for entertainment, find a hobby.
Totally.
There's going to be some great, exciting, sexy things about business, but a lot of business, money, finances, taxes are not that sexy, but it's needed. And so when you can begin to really change the context of like, wow, I really love being in the treatment room. I really love helping people. Then to change the context in which you think of sales, for example, because a lot of people don't like selling. And so changing that context and being like, when I'm selling, I'm giving someone the opportunity to make a decision to really change their life and the way that they feel about themselves. And because I love that so much, I know the end result of this, then how can I begin to change the context of selling? Because the more that I sell gives me the more opportunity to help more people and to do more of what I really love.
Yeah.
And so all of it is really correlated. And it's just like change the context and then you begin to change because we're always the byproduct of our context. So when we can begin to shift those perspectives, I think it can really help us to be committed to the long game of being an entrepreneur.
That is so good. And it's so true. Think about it as helping people and you're changing people's lives. It's not just selling. It's not just giving them a product. You're helping them. You're changing their lives. You're making them make a decision. You make them feel a certain way, better, building their own confidence. You're giving that to them. And it's not just about selling. And when you take your focus off of that, everything changes. So,
Yeah.
so good.
You've evolved so much as a person and in your business. What would you say has been the biggest breakthrough for you?
Oh, my mind, my mindset. I can't stress it enough. And it's really hard if you haven't gone through like breakthroughs, like mentally. For me, everything changed in my life. I truly believe that when you act as if the person that you want to be and you start walking in the thoughts, even like the clothing, the everything in the person that you want to become, and you start acting as if that person, and you do that over and over, you begin to change even from the physical, like those physical things. But I would say even mentally, before I felt like I was so weak-minded. Everything would bring me down. I would be so offended if someone offended me, if someone said something that I didn't like, or it would hurt my feelings. Like all of this, I would say mentally, just like I was very weak. And changing my mindset to being, no, this is the woman that I know I was meant to be. I'm going to step in this and I'm going to start acting like her right now. I am not her. I do not feel like her. I don't even want to go into work right now. I am not this girl. But getting out of bed and being like, I'm going to be this girl today. I'm going to be her today and I'm going to be her tomorrow. And just acting as if I was already that has helped me grow into that person. And it's literally changed my life. In being a risk taker. I grew up in a household of you go to school, you get a good job, you go to work, you go home, you do the same thing. That's what I was conditioned to do. Everyone in my life was like that. And then I met my husband and I see him taking crazy risks. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're crazy. We have kids, we have family. What are you doing? You can't just risk it all. But I trust him. And then learning from him and being like, no, I can do it. I can take risks, big risks. You might fall, but if you have that foundation, and that's what I always kind of go back to, is even if everything were to get stripped away, even if everything were to get taken away from me, even if the school, for whatever reason, didn't work out or whatever, I would be 100% cool because I took the biggest risk of my life by opening up this school. And I know that I could build myself back up, and it's all because of my mind. And that's as good as it gets. When you're to that point where you're like, everything could be taken from me and I would be solid, that's to me a success. There's nothing greater than that.
And you need to re-listen to this podcast because literally you were stripped away of everything, right?
Yeah.
The accolades of having the success and then having to start from ground zero again. And you really did rebuild everything back up. So you absolutely have already done that. That's amazing. Do you have a current mantra right now?
Oh, listen, I'm a little bit holy, but I'm a little hustle too. My mantra right now is fuck around, find out. Like I am so just passionate about what I'm doing. I'm so driven. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this school the best school and to change lives of every single girl who walks through there. And there's nothing that could stop me mentally, physically, whatever. And so I'm just going to fuck around and find out how high I can take this.
Oh my gosh. So if I wanted to be an esthetician, I would want you to be in my corner because that passion and determination is someone who I want to be teaching me to make sure that I'm as successful as I can be. That's awesome.
Thank you.
When you look back at the time when you were transitioning into being a solo esthetician, working in a ghetto place.
Girl, it was beyond ghetto would have been nice compared to where I was.
So when you were working in a ghetto place and you were brand new, right? You don't really have a lot of those before and after and that content and that credibility and experience. Because I know someone is listening right now that is not in the greatest place that they see themselves in for the future. But right now it's let me just get this done and I'm in it to win it. Do you know why people were coming to you? Have you taken a time to kind of reflect and from a bird's eye view? I didn't have any of the proof. I didn't have the credibility. I didn't have the experience. I definitely didn't have the image or the space. What do you think people were drawn to?
I know what it was. I gave 100%. I could go to my deathbed knowing that this is accurate. I gave 100% to every girl who walked through my door. I didn't care who she was. I don't care how much she was spending, how much she wasn't spending. If her service was free, it didn't matter. I truly believe that every person is so valuable and I treat every single person like she's a queen. Every girl comes through my room like she is a celebrity and I'm going to treat her like a celebrity. actually goes back to when I was a hostess. That was my job when I was younger. And I remember I had a life-changing moment. There was this guy who he was training me. And he was like, you fine wine and dine every person who sits down at this table. You fine wine and dine them. And it always stuck with me. His name's Gene. I'll never forget him. And he would fine wine, he'd smooze them. I worked at, like, it's called HG Bistro, and it was a cute little bistro, and people would come in for wine and stuff. And I learned by the people around how to treat people really well, and they would leave good tips, and they would come back and they'd bring their friends. And I learned early on that
They probably requested you.
they did exactly.
Requested you seated at your table.
100%, 100%. And so I brought that into the aesthetics world of like, hey, you fine wine and dine your clients who come to you, and you treat them like royalty. And man, they love to feel like they're valued, and it wasn't superficial. I want to make you feel the best that you could feel. And I want to be the reason that you feel so good. And I truly believe that those girls felt that when they came into my room. And it was beyond just getting a facial or just getting brow wax. They felt something different when they came in because I valued them, and they were attracted to it. They wanted to come back. They wanted to tell their friends about me. And that is literally how I got to where I am.
I love that. So if you're listening right now and you're brand new,
Yeah.
and you don't have that experience and you don't have that credibility, you don't have the image and the space and the portfolio,
It's okay. You don't need it.
you don't need it. You
Yeah.
don't need it. I look back in my career and same thing. Like, I didn't have a before and after photo. Nobody knew what the hell camouflage tattooing was. And I think about that. A lot of the students that we train, they will ask me that, but I don't have a portfolio. I don't have the before and afters. How am I going to get clients? You know, I don't have proof. And I'm like, I started like you, ground zero with zero proof. And the only thing, if I were to look back and be like, what the hell sold them? What got them to invest and trust in me? And it was because of my passion. And so if you have the passion, if you can pour it into people, if you can wine and dine them because you are invested in people, what I'm hearing is that you can absolutely do this without the credibility, without the social proof, without those before and afters.
Yes, it is 100% possible. If I showed you what my face looked like, I was in the back of a building. It was muddy. It was the smell. There was like, I'm not even kidding. When you walked in, there was like this horrible smell, and I couldn't get rid of it. The bathroom was, I would never even step. I don't even know how I was in that building. But it was the passion of doing it was more important to me and getting started. And I knew that humble beginning. I'm not going to be here forever. This is just a stepping stone. So if you're watching this and you're in this position, it's just the beginning. Give 100%. Because if you're not going to give 100% in a rundown building, you think you can go, you can't.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to. You need to go through the growth. You need to go through and that grit of like, I'll do whatever it takes. And one door leads to another. You never know what types of people are going to come to you, going to walk through those doors, the connections that you're going to make. And people will see that you're more interested in them and giving them the best service. And they won't even think about the little details that you're thinking about right now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so you're a wife, you're a mom, you're a business owner, you're a trainer. Who else are you?
Oh my gosh, I've never been asked this question. I am a free spirit at heart. I think I come across as very professional, very business, but I think deep down I am very adventurous. I like to try new things. I like meeting lots of new people, spontaneous. I think I am also on a journey to find out who the other parts of being and kind of bring all of the other parts of me into what I'm doing. But being a business owner and being a wife and mom, I feel like that takes up all of what I do.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I love about being a human, especially as a woman, is we are so multidimensional. And one of the things that I loved about you, and really for those listening, this is my first time meeting Mariah in person. Of course, I follow her on Instagram, and even when you walked into the studio, I already feel like I know you. Like, just from the way that you exude yourself online, I'm like, oh my God, like you're just a girlfriend. And now that I'm actually sitting next to you and meeting you in person and engaging with you, it's everything's congruent, one. But I also see one of the things that I noticed about you, just kind of like when I was researching and making sure I was prepared for today, is I didn't actually know if you were married. I didn't know if you were a mom. And I think that's so intriguing because you are so multidimensional. And I think a lot of people, they forget that I'm a wife and a mom too.
Yeah.
Because I have all these other aspects that I do in my life that bring me so much fulfillment. How lucky am I to find so much fulfillment in my family and being a mom and my business? And not everyone sees all those aspects of you. And so that's the reason why I asked that question. It's like, who else are you? Because I think those things are really interesting.
Yeah, that makes more sense, like context around it. And just so you know, I feel the exact same way about you. Seeing you online for so long, but then seeing you in person, I'm like, girl, we've known each other for years, right? Like it just feels that way. And it's so true. It's like, I think a lot of people know us as like, oh, you're the one who owns a school, or you're the one who's doing all these things. But we are so multidimensional. We have kids, we have a family. And you know what? That is my foundation over everything, over the business. If my family life, if my relationship with my husband is wavering, I'm not doing good in my business. I always want to put my husband first before everything, my kids first before everything. And then all of my fulfillment fills into my business. But people don't always see that. And not that I need to prove, but I don't need to share everything. And I try to keep my personal life private for the most part. Like I'm not always showing what I'm doing all the time. It's very, very minimal because I enjoy my personal life being private with my husband and kids. And that's all
Yeah. How do you navigate everything?
being on board, like with my husband, I would say number
Yeah.
one, open conversations about my goals, my dreams, my plans for everything. When I'm doing something and he thinks I'm crazy, it's all for a reason. I'm doing all of this for a reason. And he is just as crazy as I am. So we're both like always on the same page.
Yeah.
But I would say scheduling for my kids, planning in advance is the biggest piece of advice I could give, like packing lunches the night before, laying out the clothes the night before, keeping up on all their schedules. I never want to miss anything. I want to be a part of everything. You would never know based on my Instagram, but I spend a lot of time with my kids. I am always with my kids. I am always with my husband. I'm really rarely ever alone, as much as it may seem like it. But I would say just like being on top of being involved and trying to organize my time with my kids.
I love that. Do you ever feel mom guilt? Just curious.
You know what? Of course. And that's one thing that I have really shifted. I am very much aware when I'm starting to spend too much time on my phone, or I'm starting to dissipate when my kids are asking questions and I'm trying to respond to an email or something. I'm like, ugh, not now. And then I have to stop. I'm very much aware that these kids, they need mom. They don't care that I'm running a business. They don't care that I have emails to send. They're looking at me as mom. And I only get a certain amount of years with them. And the business is going to grow. And I'm going to have it for as long as I have it. My kids, I have to remember that they're number one and that they only have a certain amount of time that I have with them. And so I have been so much better. I used to struggle so bad because I would always put all this stuff first. And I got to a point where the mom guilt was heavy and I just stopped. And I'm like, nope, I'm not on my phone from the time they get home from school, the time they go to bed. I'm not on my phone. You won't see me on Instagram or trying to do that. On the other side, my kids see the school and they come with me and they see that mom's working and they see that dad's working and they see that we're running our own companies and they're raised in a different environment. I like it because they see what's possible. They don't have to go work somewhere at a 9 to 5 their whole life. They see mom and dad as entrepreneurs. And I think that's so valuable. So at the same time, them seeing it is not always a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. One last thing. So as I'm learning about your story and listening to you, I've noticed this theme of reprioritizing, being like, okay, I'm going to go solo. So I'm going to quit Ulta and go solo. And then you guys move. So you have to reprioritize everything. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to build my business in Arizona. And then I'm going to open up an academy and no longer going to take clients. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I feel like oftentimes as entrepreneurs, I always say everything that you want is going to require something from you. So if you want to own a 6-figure business, if you want to open up an academy, it's going to require something from you. Your business requires sacrifices from you. There's always a give and a take. It's not always take, right? Like I'm going to get all of this. And so can you share a little bit about that? Because I think that's really key in regards to the value of time, and the reason why maybe you've excelled as quickly as you have is because you've really had to let go.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much time in the day. Balancing being a wife and a mother, hours are finite, they're scarce, and we sometimes think that they're endless.
That is so good. Oh my gosh. I love that you asked this because I struggled so much with the letting go part. New level, new devil. Every time you move up, there's going to be something. There's going to be something trying to stop you. There's going to be some reason why you can't do it. And it felt like, for instance, going out of the treatment room to open the school was the hardest thing aside from starting the business from scratch. That was my next level. My next devil was literally having followers on Instagram watching me and seeing me go from being in the treatment room, taking clients, all the things, to opening a school and being out of the treatment room. For whatever reason, I could not wrap my head around it. I was like, they're not going to want to follow me anymore. I'm out of the treatment room. I'm not going to have anything to offer them. That's how I felt. And it held me back from moving sooner and quicker. I couldn't figure out why I didn't want to open up a salon. Like, for instance, I could have opened up a salon instead of a school and just done like that. But I knew in my gut, no, you need to open a school. You've been wanting to do this for 16 years. What are you doing? Go and open a school. Like, you got to let go. And I can tell you from experience in many things, the second you let go and you let go of all of the things that are holding you, you get to the next level.
The more you can bring in.
Exactly. The more you can bring in for that next time that you have to do it. And it gets easier and easier to let things go because you got to be more effective. It's a new level. It requires more from you, but also requires dying to certain aspects, whether that be mindset, things that you thought that you have to let go of and you have to think differently. People that were in your life at that time who can no longer be at the next level with you, unfortunately, because they're just not there. Or people who are holding you back from doing the things you want to do. You have to die to certain things, certain people, certain mindset, everything to move forward. But every time that I've done that, I have blossomed 10 times more than being stuck in that place. So
yeah. Thank you so much, Mariah, for your
course.
honesty and being so transparent. I loved hearing everything that you shared, and you gave such good advice. If someone is interested in learning more about your academy, becoming an esthetician, where can they find you?
I am projectsd.com is the website for my school. Also on Instagram at Mariah SD. I'm on Instagram every single day. The website is the best place to find inquiries about the school.
We'll share that all in the show notes below. And if someone is already an esthetician, they're already licensed, do you have opportunities and programs that you can also offer to them? Because I'm sure someone listening is like, gosh, I'm already licensed. This girl's amazing. How can I still work with her?
Awesome. Yes, I'm going to have so much for estheticians who are already licensed, advanced trainings, seminars, business classes, so much all throughout the year. ProjectSD.com is where I'll have updates on all of my advanced trainings. And also you can follow my Instagram, my school page, the Project SD school page, and I'll have all my advanced trainings on there as well.
Okay. And then last question.
Yes.
So your program is going to be flippin' amazing. Is this a interview process? How does this work if someone wants to be licensed by you? And do they have to be in the state of Arizona?
Okay, great question. That's what we're working on. I have so many inquiries from people out of country.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for that. So I'm working with State Board to try and figure out how we can get them in the program, get them licensed, what that's going to look like as far as international students.
So what about national? Like if I was in Texas and I'm like, oh my God, I want to be trained by you and go through this program. So you're working out the kinks to that? Or is that already figured out nationwide?
Yeah. As far as other states coming in, we would have to transfer the license. So every state is going to be very different. Some states it's really easy. Okay, you can come into town and we have Airbnb. We are in real estate as well. But get more houses so that girls can come from out of state and stay in our Airbnbs while they're in school, to give them that option. And then they would go back to their home state or whatever, and we would just transfer the license. And I want to be a part of that, helping them transfer the license. Every state is very different, but I definitely want that to be an option for sure.
That is so cool. So you officially open up your doors next month.
Yes, it is an application process. I am not just accepting everyone into the program. It will definitely be girls who I know they want to do this, they're prepared to do this, and they're committed. We are doing 5 days in person. So it was going to be online and in person. We're doing all in person. So you have to be all in. It's very I want hands on. And so the girls that are coming in need to be committed. So it's an application process, and then they have to come in to meet me in person and take a tour and really connect to make sure that we're on the same page. And then at that point, if they move past there, then they can apply and I can get them ready for admission to actually come into the program.
So cool. How long is...
So it's a 6-month program. It's 5 days a week. It's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I wanted it to be very simple and allow them to have from 2 p.m. to 10 to do whatever they need to do, work or whatever.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for listening. Give her a follow, send her a message, share it on your Instagram story if you felt this was valuable, which I know you will. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. You are incredible, and I'm just honored to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love to connect and help you more. If you have a question you'd like for me to answer, please send it to jade@studioconceal.com. That's JAYD at studioconceal.com, and I might highlight it on my podcast. I find what's often personal is most general. So if this episode helped you, please share it with a friend who may need the encouragement and inspiration. I'll catch you on the next one.